On this week's episode, I'm joined by Dr. Carole Keim, who is a board-certified pediatrician, podcaster, author, and social media maven, who's sharing her insights on how healthcare professionals can leverage social media to share their expertise for better health outcomes. Welcome back to This Getting Old, Moving Towards an Age-Friendly World. I'm Dr. Melissa Batchelor, and I am a nurse practitioner, and I wear a lot of different hats in my work, including hosting this weekly podcast to bring you news and information on aging, caring for someone living with Alzheimer's disease, and a wide range of topics that I hope will help move us towards becoming an age-friendly world. Because when things are age-friendly, they're friendly for everyone. So if you like the podcast, the best way to help me grow and support the podcast is to like it, share it, and leave a review in whatever platform you've tuned in on today. Because no matter how old you are today, we are all aging, and these issues are going to become increasingly important. If you're a millennial, there are things that need to be in place when you reach the age of 65. So we have about 20 to 25 years to get these things in place to help you age with the support and choices that will help you, just like the people that are 65 today. Your likes, shares, and reviews help get the information out to help more people dealing with these issues. So now let's dive into this week's episode where we're talking about professional use of social media. And I'm doing an interview today with Dr. Carole Keim. Dr. Carole Keim has her own podcast. It's called The Baby Manual and has over 50,000 downloads. And it's been listened to in over 135 countries around the world and actually topped the charts in both pediatrics and the motherhood categories. So the Baby Manual book is available in Amazon, and you have a TikTok channel with over 250,000 followers. And you're also on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. So you're definitely an expert in using social media. So before we get started, maybe just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about your background.
Yeah. So I'm a pediatrician by training, and I went to medical school in the Czech Republic. I did my residency in New York, and I've worked around the US in a lot of different settings in hospitals and clinics, urgent cares. I've also worked in Argentina, Finland, Czech Republic, and US. So a few different countries around the world. And I feel like all of this experience has just sort of lent to just getting a wide range of what's normal, what's not normal, what's pretty universal everywhere for parents all over, and what's specific to certain areas as well.
Right. So you're in clinical practice. And so I always think it's interesting how people kind of got interested in using social media and kind of why.
Yeah, so it started, I guess my social media journey really started during the beginning of the pandemic when everyone was turning to online. So having worked in all these different settings, at the time I was running my house call practice in Boulder, Colorado, and then also working as a hospitalist in a few different hospitals around the country, mostly taking care of newborns and some pediatric patients as well. I stopped my hospital work during the pandemic and just did the house call practice. And I realized that a lot of people were looking online for information, that people had stopped, a lot of parents had stopped bringing their children into the office. My house call practice became more popular because a lot of people were afraid to go to the doctor and to see, to expose their children to a potential clinical setting like that. And the kids that were coming into the hospital often were coming in late and sicker than before because parents were afraid to expose them again. So I thought, with all these parents looking online for information, there's so much misinformation out there. Let me just make some little videos. I'm so used to talking to parents in the clinic, and especially with TikTok, this is a way that I can really reach people all over the world and help kind of everyone everywhere. TikTok has this cool algorithm where it's kind of like Netflix or Pandora, the music one, where you have what you're already following and interested in, but that's about 10% of what you see when you first log in. And the rest of it is just stuff that they think you're going to be interested in. And so the videos would get blasted out to parents to like a certain sort of shell, like they were just different layers of numbers of people. And if it did well enough, if enough people liked or commented or shared, then it would get blasted out to another 10 times as many and then 10 times as many. And so it just suddenly went viral after about 2 months. I did a video about why 1-month-olds all appear to be constipated, but they're not. And that one just sort of blew up the channel. And I felt really great being able to help people because like I would get these comments of like, we're in Malaysia, we're in Nepal, and thank you so much for sharing this. We would not have gotten this information otherwise, and even throughout the US as well, just to, yeah, give information that's actually good information, I guess, and medically sound.
Right. So the thing I think about is in my world in geriatrics, constipation doesn't get a lot of headline news, but
Yeah.
diarrhea will. Let somebody have diarrhea and everybody's coming to you, but constipation,
Yeah.
not so much. So it's good to know that constipation on the other end
Yeah.
is a little more severe. And then tell us a little bit about, because I'm starting to use TikTok more.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. But I do think that's probably a good match with your target audience. If you're looking for, like for me, Facebook is better because my target audience is typically, over 60, so what were some of the things some of the things in your background that had prepared you specifically for TikTok?
So with TikTok, when you're starting out, you're limited to 1-minute videos. And I had been in a business networking group, a BNI group, for 5 or 6 years at that point. And I was very used to giving 1-minute presentations. And then also having worked in a lot of different clinics, I feel like I had the information kind of dialed down to just my little 1-minute pitches of, this is what jaundice is and what causes it, or this is how to pick a formula, or, different topics that I would talk to repeatedly with parents, or like the phone calls I'd get in the middle of the night where they're panicked and you need to give them the information quickly before they just lose interest and glaze over. And so the 1-minute timeline was really, I noticed as I was recording the videos, they were all like 59 seconds to 101. I was like right around there every time. And it just, yeah, I think that those two things together kind of helped me get comfortable with that.
Yeah. Well, it also, that honing of your message. I know that, in medical school, nursing school, a lot of professional education schools, that is a skill set. It's a communication skill set. Instead of like telling everybody everything, like just tell them what they need to know. And if they have questions, they'll ask you, and then you can continue to like unravel yourself like an onion with the depth of knowledge that you have, but you're right. You're going to lose people who are like, I don't know what he's talking about. And then the one nugget or the one soundbite that they needed to hear, they don't hear it because they're already overwhelmed.
Right. Or they didn't listen for that long and they've already like flicked to the next one after that. And it's nice because you can continue the conversation in the comments, but also a lot of the questions that I get in the comments, especially if I saw something several times, I would just make another video out of that and then put that video out.
Right. So what are some differences that you've seen between like, because you're on other platforms, what are some of the similarities and kind of differences with those?
So I'd say for something like Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn and Instagram, you're primarily seeing things that are your friends and then friends of friends kind of things, or things that your friends have interacted with. So that felt more sort of geographically limited, I'd say, in the same way that like working in person in a clinic is you're just limited to that area. And so I like that TikTok does that sort of algorithm where they put it out kind of all over the world. Of course, if you have a practice or an information that is local, then going with one of those more local platforms makes a lot more sense. What's similar, I have, so I found this website, it's called later.com, and you can use the free trial of it. It's really great. I really like maxed out the free version until I finally did start eventually paying for it. But I really love it because you can schedule out your posts on all these different platforms, and you can put like what you wanted to put as the caption underneath it and some hashtags underneath it as well. And then when you go to post it, you can post to all of them at the same time. And it'll tell you, this video is too tall for Instagram. You need to crop it to this ratio. And then you just click on it and crop it. And this is too many characters for a Twitter post. So you need to change that. And so you just go and change that in that one thing. So it's very easy to have, posting across all of the platforms at the same time. And so I liked that because I felt like they were all, most of the platforms do video. Twitter's more text. So it would just more be the caption of it that would be going out there. But yeah, they all like that 1-minute time limit also.
Right. And then using graphics and things like that,
Yeah,
to keep people in.
that's right. I also had some stills that I would put there. Yeah, some like quotes from book reviews and things.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about your books and kind of how you view social media to kind of expand the reach of those.
Yeah, so I wrote the baby manual in 2015, and what really I think the sort of I've been wanting to write something like that for my patients for a long time. I wanted to write some kind of handout materials because I feel like a lot of the things that we give out in the office, there's a lot of fluff in it and not a lot of actual information. And I think most parents don't even look at it, or they forget they even had it by the time they get to the car. So I wanted something that would be useful for them. And I realized that, when parents are calling in the middle of the night, a lot of times I'm just going to give them the same answer, the same sort of standard answer of like when they're panicking that the umbilical cord fell off and there's blood there, I'm going to tell them the same thing to do every time. And so I just started writing those things down. And I was giving talks at the birth center in Boulder and realized that I could just turn those outlines from the talks into a book. And so the book sort of came about almost accidentally, but more just as something that I could give to my patients and parents so that they would have a place to look before they needed to call. And I had really good feedback from that. And so then I started talking about the book a little bit on social media. And it's kind of interesting. I think part of what made the social media channels so popular is that I wasn't trying to sell anything originally. I was really just trying to give information to people. But then I realized it might be helpful for them to have this book as well, because it's all in one place and it's really short. It's like 100 pages and concise. After my daughter was born, I wrote a second edition, realized there were a couple of things that were kind of missing from it or could be added in. And then I was taking her to kindergarten one day and realized, she's on the cover of that second edition. I think it's time for a third edition. It's now 5 years old and there's probably some updates. And there wasn't a whole lot of information that's changed in the last 5 years, but I put out a third edition last winter of that and just made it a little more concise. And, there were things that were in multiple places in the book. And so I just made it shorter for parents. Because, parents are, I mean, really everyone nowadays, especially if we're getting our information through social media, they want that sort of instant gratification. They just want the information they need right when they need it. They don't want to read through a whole bunch of paragraphs or words or sift through a whole book. I had a parent tell me recently she got a stack of baby books when her baby was born, and they were all really thick. And a lot of them are, 500 to 800 pages long. And she felt this pressure to know all of this stuff before her baby was born. And she was like, it was just overwhelming to have this, mountain of information that I feel like I'm supposed to have read before having a baby. And really, you don't need all of that. And so my book is targeted towards the first year of life because there's a lot that comes up at that time that is normal, that's really scary. And you don't know it's going to happen until it's happening. And then you go Googling and you find worst case scenario information about it. Or you call your after hours nursing line, and most of the time they're trained to just tell you need to go into the emergency room if you're worried. And of course you're worried if you're calling. And so that's not always necessary. So it's really just a book about, where's the line between like what's worrisome, what's not, what can I do at home? And it's really just reassuring for parents, I feel like.
If you're a nurse who's considering going back to school to become a nurse practitioner, I wanted to share 3 exciting opportunities that we have at George Washington University School of Nursing. Our adult gerontology nurse practitioner program in both our acute care and primary care track, as well as our psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner programs. So to learn more, just go to nursing.gwu.edu and submit your application. When you get to campus, be sure to look me up because I'd love to support you in any way that I can as you advance your career in one of these critical areas of healthcare. Yeah, I mean, it reminds me a lot of, it's like a modern day Dr. Spock type of book, but it's also just-in-time learning. And it's like, here's the question I have, and particularly even, your patients to be like, what would she say first? And then you're basically kind of giving them a little algorithm with triage from what it sounds like, so that they can just get the answer to the question and you're right. Like nobody's going to read. Most people don't read all that stuff. And then the other piece of it is like, these marketing materials that kind of marketers make up, like they don't always translate. And so how do we take what we know as providers and put it into like short, concise sound bites that are actually answers to the questions?
Yes.
So now let's talk a little bit about your podcast.
Yeah, so yeah, I realized after, doing the TikTok, I put the videos also on all the other platforms on YouTube, on everything. But then I thought, these are just 1 minute videos. So it's really just one piece of information at a time. And maybe I could do something that's a little bit longer, a little bit more complete. And so I started the podcast to go along with the well child checks that everybody gets. And so everyone has 8 checkups in the first year of life, and they happen at very specific ages. And if we had a full hour to spend with a family, this is what I would talk about for 20 to 30 minutes of that time. And it's really just sort of everything that comes up at that age, and also answers to the most common questions that I get asked at those visits. And so I've been collecting this information over the years, and it's like all been in my head. And I thought, yeah, I can just put it all together in one place where they just have to listen to one episode based on their baby's age. And so the first season is the first year of life. And I have a couple of topic specific ones in there as well. Like I've got, things like feeding for babies and how that changes throughout the first year. So some of the topics can kind of like, they go more longitudinally than just like at the specific ages. But yeah, it's all the anticipatory guidance that we do. So it's like what to expect between now and your next checkup, what's normal at this age, what are red flags to look out for, what you're probably worried about that you don't need to be worried about, that kind of stuff. And then the second season of it was age 1 to 3. And then I've just started a third season with holistic and alternative and supportive care for the most common conditions for ages 0 to 3. So that's things like ear infections, teething, colic, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, right. And so there's two things, I think that you're fortunate in the fact that in early childhood, like from birth to age 5, there are developmental milestones that kind of all babies go through. And in my world, it's like a crapshoot because everybody is so different. We don't have like decremental milestones, which is good. But we also don't have like there's normal aging, but even within that, people are still able to live healthy, kind of vibrant lives with those chronic illnesses. So, and then you have a newsletter.
Yes, I do. So I started a newsletter for new moms. It's called Nervous New Moms. It's at nervousnewmoms.com. And it's a weekly newsletter that they get for the first year of their baby's life. And they sign up based on their baby's age. So they're getting information specific to that age range.
Yeah. So I do love, I know how long you started like 2015. So now we're 8 years in.
Yeah.
How did you, what was the evolution? You started with the book and then you did the TikToks.
Yeah. So I started the TikTok in 2020, and then I started the podcast about a year or so later, end of 2021.
Yeah. And so I think that's important for anyone to realize, there's a lot that I've done in my career. And I always do this one talk about different ways that I've used social media and technology. But when you present that to a group, they're just they're just tired. And I'm like, I'm tired, looking at it. But when you realize, I was like, this started in 2012. So this is 20 years.
Yeah.
20. We'll have to do the math there. It's like 12, not 20. But it's something that you pick up one skill, and then once you've done that, you can go on to the next. And building your newsletter out, it's 52 emails once a week, and so that's just kind of automated for you once somebody comes in with that well baby,
right.
and you have these other resources that are great, and they're not just helping your kind of clients, but people globally. And I think that for me, with my first podcast, I was like, well, it's based off this traditional conference, and they trained 818 faculty, all, 50 states and in 3 countries. And I took those 9 modules and turned them into podcasts, and they were accessed 40,000 times in over 40 countries. And that's just from the NYU website. We never, at that point in time, nobody could figure out how to get me the analytics out of iTunes. And I didn't know anything about YouTube. And, looking back, I'm like, I wish I had embraced YouTube then, because the impact could have been more. But, you can do the best as you can do when you do it. Yeah. So if somebody else is, another healthcare professional, different discipline, what are some advice and tips and tricks that you would share with them?
Yeah, so I guess when I was first starting, I was really nervous that someone might take the information and maybe misinterpret it or not bring their baby in when they should have, or something bad, that there might be some kind of bad outcome. And that was just terrifying to me. And I was really afraid at first to be putting information out, medical information, because I feel like a lot of our information is sort of guarded. Like we're kind of taught to like keep it behind a wall, and like you have to come in to be seen for that. We have to talk to you in person about that. It has to be personalized, tailored to like just you. But there is a lot of stuff that is universal. And so I just focused on that, the stuff that pretty much everyone everywhere is dealing with and can help, lots of people. And then just sort of finding that line of, at this point, you do need to call your doctor and get some more information. Or I always make sure to say, like, at least at the beginning of the book and stuff, if this information is different than what your doctor said, then listen to your own doctor because they know you personally, but this is general medical knowledge.
Yeah, it's all the context that goes into it too. But I mean, even though as healthcare providers, like we need patients to come in so that we can generate income, on the flip side of that, like, if by, I think that social media, first of all, helps you build a relationship so that they trust you. And then, when they come in, like it's truly, because they're like, okay, I trust you. I listened to this one thing. I tried it. It didn't work, and so it's not like wasting their time or your time.
Right.
And lets you deal with like bigger issues. I've never been to a doctor's office that was like a ghost town.
Yeah.
So it's like, what's the big worry?
Right. We're not putting ourselves out of business by giving information out there. And if anything, it's, like you said, it's building that relationship and trust with people and then letting them know at least something, just giving them something that's actually actionable and useful and to the point. I love that your podcast also is just like very short to the point and really useful information, that parents, or that I guess, sorry, adults can listen to and use. And then it's also sort of a starting point for like, okay, now that I know this much, I actually want to know a little bit more. I have some more questions. And you're not going to be giving away everything that I mean, we went to school for years, right, to do what we do. We're not giving years of information online. We're giving just enough that really is helpful for people, but not so much that they become overwhelmed. Like they don't need to know the entire differential diagnosis. They need to know sort of at what point I need to actually be worried. And then from there, the doctor can actually guide.
Right. And I think that goes back to, not telling everything that like what do they actually want to know. And I think one of the things that I've talked to you about is like framing like the question somebody would ask, like that's the title, because YouTube is a search engine just like Google is. And so people, are going in there and typing out questions. And then if you have a video that's not like, I think when I started, when you typed in Alzheimer's disease into YouTube, it was like all these really boring, like academic lectures. And I'm like, the public that doesn't resonate with them. It's not personable. It's not been translated. It hasn't, there's no personality in it either. So any other tips and tricks or advice if someone's getting started?
Yeah, so people learn in all different ways. And so, I mean, some people learn by reading, some learn by watching videos, some prefer short videos, some prefer audio. So having multiple platforms, you don't have to start with everything at once. Like you said, you can just do one thing, whatever feels most natural to you. Some people also, I mean, I feel like a lot of us are nervous being on video, and it can feel really daunting to be videotaped or to like watch videos of yourself. And so maybe start with audio or maybe start with written if that feels better. And you can always build on that later because different people will learn differently. And you can always help a new subset of people by just reaching out into all of these areas. And if you try to do everything at once, you're going to just spread yourself too thin and get burned out. So just pick one to start with and just do it. You have to actually do it. Nothing's going to happen while you're in the planning stages. So until something is published and out there, it's just in your head and it's not helping anyone yet. So just get on it and it'll work out.
Right. And I do think, two things is, I think that your authenticity comes through, I think that mine does too. But it also doesn't have to be perfect. So you can kind of get paralyzed by the fact that, oh, this isn't perfect. But I mean, my most watched video, I'm just like, I'm not, I tried to watch it like a couple months ago. I was like, no, like it is not my best work, but it was really early too. And it was interesting, that transition. I mean, I've been teaching since 2005 and been teaching online and recording. I'm used to sitting here talking to my students just in here by myself, and it's an odd feeling to be doing that, but it was different to go from knowing I was just talking to 30 people to like a lot of people could hear this. And so I was just nervous. So I was like stuttering. So now I'm working on that as well.
Yeah.
So, all right. So let's tell people where they can find you and all of your stuff.
Yeah, I think the easiest is my link tree because it has links to everything on it. So my link tree is linktr.ee/Dr. Keim, DRKEIM. And that has links to the books, the podcast, the email series, the newsletter, all the social media. And I can send you a link to put in the show notes as well. But also if you just search Carole Keim, Keim, and you pretty much will find me just Googling as well.
Right. And I know even for myself, even as much as I knew, like, I'll tell you this story really quick. When my first child was born, like we're in the hospital, like at this point, I'm at least an RN, but I've only ever worked in geriatrics. Right. And I literally thought they were going to change, my baby's diaper. I was in the hospital. So I like called the nurse and I was like, hey, somebody needs to come change his diaper. And they're like, the Pampers are like right here. And I was like, oh, they expect me to do that. And it was just like, I was like so nervous to do that, but I did it. And then he got choked at one point. And so like my mom was there and my mother-in-law at the time, who was also an RN, and he starts to get choked. So I grab like the bulb syringe and I start to like try to deal with it in the way that I've been taught in nursing school. And I look at my mom and, and my mother-in-law, I'm like, go get the nurse. And my mom was like, and I was like, go get the nurse. So she runs out and said, like, obviously, like I suctioned him out. Everything was fine. And I came back when everything settled down, I said, why didn't you just go? And she goes, because you're telling me to go get a nurse. And I was standing there with two nurses and I really didn't understand. And I'm like, but this is new, so yeah. I think it's great that you have kind of a weekly newsletter that comes out for new parents. It sounds like, anybody can sign up for it, yes. And listen to your podcast and, and find your book. And so I just really appreciate the work that you're doing. And it's great to see all of your success. And you've actually given me some ideas of some things.
Thank you. Oh, and I have another book that's actually at the time that this podcast come out, it'll already be out on Amazon. It's called The Holistic Mama's Handbook. And that's, again, just like what's in the third season of the podcast, but just in written format and a little bit more in the book than on the podcast. And it goes through all the different alternative medicines, things like aromatherapy and acupuncture and chiropractic and homeopathy, and what works, what doesn't, Western medicine approaches, when to use different ones, that kind of thing. So I just want to help everyone everywhere, and I thought this is sort of the next natural stage of that, is once we've gone through all the normal stuff, now let's go through like some of the sick stuff that's really common, and ways to help kids that are too young to actually take medicines.
Yeah. Well, and the good news is, I mean, things do change, things do shift. And the good news is that we have plenty of content to keep us busy, yes. That you have a way that people can contact you if they had like a particular question. Cause I'm always asking people that same thing. It's like, if you have a question, just drop it in the comment below, but we'll have a link to all your social media. We'll put the link tree link down there too. And so I appreciate.
Oh, just one other bit of advice for other providers getting started. Like, you don't have to have everything figured out at the beginning. It's okay to just have a starting point, and it's okay to outsource too. So there are companies that will edit and upload podcasts for you. There are people that can help you to write and publish a book. There are people that can help with the newsletter series. Like with mine, I had a company that built the website for me. I just had to do the text that was in the emails. So there's lots of people out there that can be helpful. And if anyone wanted to reach out to me, I'm happy to give them my resources that I use as well, and referrals. Like, it's just really, you don't have to do it all on your own, and you don't have to know everything. You just have to know what's in your specialty and just enough of it to write the content. And that's all you really need.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'll put the link too for the company that produces mine. It's Broadcaster Authority with Tamara Thompson and Danielle. And they are awesome. And you're right. Like, I knew going into it, I was like, I can't do all of this by myself. And they have a little bit different skill set because it's what they do every day. They produce thousands,
Yeah.
of podcasts. And so I've learned a lot from them as well. And another resource, if you're looking, for different ideas about how to get started, I did publish a book last year, 2 years ago, called Social Media in Healthcare: How to Build Your Professional Digital Presence. And so we'll put a link to that down in the description below as well. So, all right. Well, thank you so much for being with us, and I'm excited to see this episode come out.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. You can check out other episodes on this platform or visit my website at melissabphd.com. Thanks to listeners like you. In the first 18 months of This Is Getting Old, we have reached a ranking of top 10% globally, and I cannot tell you how much I appreciate your support in making that happen. I'm also really excited to let you know that you can now work with me directly, either one-on-one, or you can join one of the groups that I coach. Particularly if you're an adult child dealing with an aging parent, or a caregiver trying to manage the complexities of someone living with Alzheimer's disease. In the show notes, you can also find information about how to reach out and contact me directly, and I hope to work with each of you very soon as we discover and share more ways to make the world more age-friendly for everyone. My website also has information about how to contact me for speaking engagements, or if you have someone you'd like to recommend as a show guest for This Is Getting Old. If you have a product or service in the aging space that you would like to advertise and or sponsor an episode, there's more information about that on my website. And you can also find books and courses that I've developed and learn more about the products and services that I recommend. So don't forget, if you like the podcast, the best way to help me grow and support it is to like it, share it, and leave a review in whatever platform that you've tuned in on today. Your likes, shares, and reviews help increase my rating and my rankings, and also help other people find the podcast. I look forward to reading your reviews and hearing from you.